Where to start? Perhaps back when I was a young 19-year-old, fresh out of high school and heading off to college. Like many kids at that age, I thought I was pretty cool. I dated around a lot, enjoying the challenge of seeing how many girls I could charm. It was all about the thrill of the chase. Would she or wouldn't she? That was always the question on my mind. And I had plenty of successes and failures along the way. College didn't hold my attention for long. My mind was more focused on the challenge of seduction than on studying. Despite dropping out, I managed to pick up enough skills to land some decent jobs. Sales was my forte, and it often put me in the homes of potential clients. I enjoyed those visits, especially when I sensed a bit of sexual tension in the air. If a woman seemed interested, I didn't hesitate to make a move, though I was careful not to jeopardize my job over a fling. Then I met Nancy, a lovely girl I encountered while shopping at the mall. She was petite, with a warm smile and curves that caught my eye. After some persistence on my part, she agreed to go out with me. I genuinely cared for Nancy, unlike the casual encounters I'd had before. Our relationship felt different, more meaningful. When she became pregnant, we decided to marry, though looking back, I realized I wasn't really ready for marriage at 20. Despite my love for Nancy, I was still immature and driven by my desires. Even after getting married, I couldn't resist the temptation of other women. It wasn't about love or connection, it was about the conquest. I indulged in casual encounters, seeking the thrill of seduction. Looking back, I see how foolish and selfish I was, but at the time, I was just a naive kid chasing after any opportunity for excitement. I don't deny my mistakes or the hurt I caused. I know I've been called every name in the book, and perhaps rightly so. But I've learned from my past and grown as a person. It's a journey of self-discovery and reflection, and I'm striving to be a better man than I was back then. One day, Nancy discovered that I'd had an affair with one of the girls from the office. She was devastated, and we had many tearful discussions about it. Nancy even considered divorce, and looking back, perhaps she should have gone through with it. Eventually, she found it in her heart to forgive me, but I couldn't shake the guilt I felt over my actions. At 20, I hadn't fully grasped the consequences of my behavior until I saw the pain it caused Nancy, and that realization tore me apart. I made a solemn vow never to betray her trust again, pleading for her forgiveness. I kept my promise and worked hard to be a better husband. Our son Jacob was born, and we became a family. Like any family, we had our share of challenges. Money was tight, and we didn't always see eye to eye on spending decisions, but we managed to work through our differences. Despite the ups and downs, my love for Nancy only grew stronger after my infidelities. I cherished every moment with her, especially our intimate times together. Pleasing her in bed became my priority, and I was willing to do whatever it took to bring her pleasure. To this day, she remains the only woman whose pleasure I've prioritized above my own desires. A few years later, our joy multiplied with the arrival of our second son, David. Our family felt complete, and we reveled in the happiness of parenthood. Despite the challenges, we considered ourselves a typical, loving family. Owning my own business had always been a dream of mine, and Nancy and I discussed it extensively. Despite financial constraints, we took a leap of faith and purchased a small hardware store on a land contract. Though it wasn't a lucrative venture, it was enough to sustain us, and I felt a profound sense of fulfillment in realizing my entrepreneurial dream. With a supportive wife and 2 wonderful sons by my side, life felt abundantly blessed. Nancy struggled with her post-baby weight, often feeling insecure about her appearance. No matter how many times I reassured her that she was beautiful to me, she remained critical of herself. Her weight fluctuations didn't diminish my love and attraction to her. I adored her regardless of her size. Though she embarked on countless diets in an effort to shed the extra pounds, I cherished her just the same, embracing her for who she was, inside and out. We often found ourselves in repetitive arguments, with Nancy bringing up my past affair time and time again, even though it had been years since it happened. Despite her claims of forgiveness, I sensed that deep down, the hurt and resentment still lingered. While the boys were growing up, Nancy worked part-time, but once they reached high school, she seized a promotion at her job, which came with a significant pay raise. She also embarked on a health and fitness journey, joining a women's gym and committing to a diet regimen. Although I supported her efforts, I couldn't shake the worry that such endeavors, especially when one spouse isn't involved, could potentially lead to extramarital affairs. To my surprise, Nancy stuck with her fitness routine and began shedding pounds, which brought her newfound confidence and happiness. Naturally, this positively impacted our intimacy, which had experienced a lull during the busy years of raising a family. While our sex life had its ebbs and flows, whenever we made love, it was fulfilling and satisfying. With her job satisfaction and improved self-image, Nancy appeared happier than ever. However, a subtle shift occurred when she approached me about going out with her friends for a girls' night out. Though she'd done so countless times before, this time, her demeanor seemed off. When I pressed her about it, she attributed it to menopausal mood swings, but I sensed there was more to it. On the night of her outing, I observed her preparations, noting her simple yet elegant attire, which accentuated her beauty. Despite my trust in her, her behavior left me unsettled, prompting me to follow her discreetly. It wasn't about mistrust, but rather a deep concern for her well-being. There was an underlying issue that needed addressing, and I was determined to uncover it, even if it meant confronting uncomfortable truths. Nancy and her friends chose a spacious dance hall lounge nightclub for their night out. From the second-floor balcony, I had a clear view of them gathered in the cozy half-round booths below. Despite my reservations, they appeared to be enjoying themselves, laughing and chatting animatedly. Perhaps I was overthinking things, but I couldn't shake the need to ensure everything was okay. Among Nancy's friends were familiar faces, along with a few newcomers, likely acquaintances from her health club. As the evening progressed, a few men approached, inviting the ladies to dance. Initially hesitant, Nancy eventually joined in, her inhibitions loosened by a few drinks. While dancing wasn't the issue, my unease grew as she spent more time on the floor, especially when one particular guy seemed overly handsy. I observed discreetly as he repeatedly crossed boundaries, his hands wandering where they shouldn't. Nancy's response varied from gentle rebuffs to more prolonged tolerances, leaving me perplexed. Should I intervene? Was this a one-time occurrence or a pattern I was unaware of? Her friends' reactions offered no clues, leaving me torn between confronting her and respecting her privacy. As the night drew to a close, I watched as the group exchanged farewells. A brief goodbye kiss between Nancy and the man she danced with left me unsettled, triggering a flurry of doubts and questions. Hastily, I made my exit, retreating to the solitude of my car and then home, where I attempted to mask my inner turmoil with a drink, unsure of how to address the lingering unease that now clouded our seemingly idyllic life. Nancy arrived home promptly, and I greeted her, sensing an air of nervousness about her. As we exchanged pleasantries, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. When I asked if everything was all right, her facade crumbled, tears welling in her eyes as she confessed to having a problem she didn't know how to handle. Embracing her, I urged her to share what was troubling her. As she struggled to articulate her feelings, I listened intently, my heart sinking with each revelation. Her vulnerability laid bare, she recounted an unsettling encounter at the club, where she found herself unable to resist the advances of another man. I was torn between empathy and disbelief, grappling with the revelation that this wasn't an isolated incident but rather a pattern that had unfolded over the past few months. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife, the woman I loved, was yearning for something more, something I couldn't provide. In a moment of raw honesty, she confessed to craving the attention and validation that came from these fleeting encounters, despite her unwavering love for me. Her admission cut deep, stirring up emotions I struggled to contain. Faced with the unimaginable prospect of losing her to the allure of these extramarital trysts, I couldn't help but confront her with the stark reality of our situation. Was this what she truly wanted? A chance to explore her desires at the expense of our marriage, our commitment to each other? Though my heart ached at the thought of losing her, I refused to concede defeat, refusing to grant her the permission she sought to seek solace in the arms of others. For better or for worse, I vowed to stand by her side, to weather this storm together, even if it meant confronting the uncomfortable truths lurking beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. Nancy's tearful response echoed my own uncertainty. It was clear that we couldn't continue like this. We needed space to process our feelings, to find clarity amidst the chaos. With a heavy heart, I made the difficult decision to separate temporarily. I would move into the apartment above my store while Nancy stayed with our sons in the house. Despite her pleas for me to stay, I knew that this was something we both needed. It was a chance for Nancy to confront her inner turmoil, to decide what she truly wanted, whether it was the freedom to explore her newfound desires or to salvage our marriage. As I broke the news to our sons, I could sense their apprehension. They were too young to fully grasp the complexities of our situation, but I assured them that they were not to blame. Our love for them remained unwavering, and I promised to continue being there for them, even if our living arrangements changed. The boys' sadness weighed heavily on me as we moved my belongings to the apartment. I urged them to support their mother during this challenging time, knowing that their love and understanding would be crucial in keeping our family intact. Alone in my new surroundings, I grappled with the uncertainty of our future. The thought of losing Nancy, of everything falling apart, left me feeling helpless. But I knew that ultimately, the decision rested with her. All I could do now was wait, hoping that she would find her way back to me. Let's take a little break. If you like stories like this, then subscribe to my channel. Continuing the story. Story 2. It was Monday night, nearly 8:30, and I had just wrapped up some work on a project in my home office. Craving a break, I headed to the dark kitchen, grabbed a favorite Indian pale ale from the fridge, and glanced out the window. There, on our outdoor couch by the fire pit and pool, was Joy, engrossed in conversation on her cell phone. As I watched her, I noticed the familiar sight of her twirling a strand of her blonde hair with her right hand, a habit I'd grown to adore over our 30 years together. It wasn't a sexual gesture, but rather a soulful one, something she did unconsciously during our most intimate talks. Whenever I traveled for business and called home, hearing her twirl her hair as we talked always warmed my heart. Tonight, as she chatted away with occasional laughter and smiles, I sensed a hint of flirtation in her demeanor. Though I couldn't see her eyes from afar, I knew that familiar twinkle was present. For nearly 45 minutes, I watched in silent agony as Joy shared an intimate conversation with someone else. When she finally came inside, wearing a dreamy smile, I retreated to the family room to distract myself with a baseball game. Later, when Joy found me alone, she inquired about my absence from the backyard. I evaded her question, not wanting to confront the truth of her secret conversation. Throughout our conversation, I kept my eyes glued to the baseball game on TV, feeling Joy's gaze trying to penetrate my focus. She disappeared into the kitchen briefly, only to return with a fresh glass of wine. Perching herself on the edge of the couch beside my recliner, she inquired about the score, to which I admitted ignorance. As the game progressed, interrupted only by occasional commercials, Joy broached the topic of inviting the kids over for a barbecue on Saturday. Our exchange remained terse, with Joy eventually noticing my subdued demeanor. "Chris, what's wrong?" she prodded. "Nothing," I replied tersely. "You seem quieter than usual." "Is everything okay?" she pressed. "I just have a lot on my mind," I evaded. The silence lingered until another commercial break, during which Joy abruptly stood up and stripped off her shirt, revealing her ample curves clad in a lace bra. With a suggestive grin, she propositioned me, but I declined, citing my lack of mood. Joy's reaction was far from understanding, her persistence met with my firm refusal. Exasperated, I expressed my frustration at her double standards regarding intimacy in our relationship. Her response was icy, and I found myself seeking refuge in the guest room for the first time in our marriage. As the clock struck 3 a.m, I realized sleep was futile. Sneaking into the master bedroom, I retrieved my clothes and set my plan in motion. Utilizing tracker apps on Joy's phones, I ensured I had a way to monitor her activities. The following day at work was marked by exhaustion and a throbbing headache, yet I managed to focus on finalizing my presentation. Despite the frosty atmosphere at home that evening, I resolved to carry out my plan. The next morning, I left the house early once again, this time heading to the airport for a 7:20 flight. Wednesday proved fruitful as I made progress with our client, inching closer to securing a signed contract. Throughout the day, I periodically checked Joy's whereabouts, finding solace in the fact that she remained either at home or work. Yet, deep down, I couldn't shake the gut feeling that she was involved in an affair. That evening, after an early dinner at the Marriott Lounge, I checked Joy's location once more, this time discovering she was somewhere unfamiliar. To my dismay, she was at an upscale address in a neighboring town, identified as her boss's residence. It seemed she had spent the previous night there and commuted to work from Steve's house. In the ensuing months, tension mounted at home as Joy attempted to mend our fractured relationship with fervor. While I maintained a polite distance, any intimacy between us felt perfunctory, mere physical release. Upon discovering Joy's infidelity, I sought legal counsel, opting for a straightforward 50-50 split in our divorce proceedings. Despite limitations on surveillance, a private investigator uncovered damning evidence of Joy's affair, capturing explicit encounters between her and Steve in his backyard. Preparations for divorce intensified, culminating in a pivotal decision on Friday morning. But before executing my plan, I faced the daunting task of informing our children of the impending divorce. Each conversation was agonizing, met with tears and disbelief, yet underscored by my unwavering resolve. With a heavy heart, I confronted Joy over the phone, initiating the final step in severing our marriage. "Hi there. What a pleasant surprise. How are your meetings going?" Joy's cheerful voice greeted me over the phone. "Hey, love. You know how it is with meetings, just the usual grind. How about you? How's work been?" I inquired. "I'm so ready for the weekend. It's been a long week without you. I was hoping we could make up for lost time. Maybe even have a whole weekend to ourselves." Joy's tone was eager, but she didn't mention anything about work, which struck me as odd. Ignoring her suggestion for a moment, I steered the conversation in a different direction. "Actually, I have a question for you. It might sound strange, but I'd really like your honest answer." Joy's curiosity piqued. "All right, shoot. What's the question?" "Do you still like my smile?" I asked, remembering a pivotal moment from our past. "Your smile?" "Of course, I do. You know I've always loved your smile. It's one of the things that drew me to you in the first place," Joy replied warmly, reminiscing about our early days together. Feeling overwhelmed by her genuine affection, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I struggled to speak. "Chris, what's wrong? Why are you crying?" Joy's concern was palpable, her voice filled with worry. Taking a moment to compose myself, I finally managed to articulate, "It's just, I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to smile again." Silence hung heavy in the air as Joy processed my words. After a tense pause, she implored, "Chris, please tell me what's going on. I want to help." But I knew it was too late for words. "I'm sorry, Joy. It's too late for us to talk. The damage is done," I said, my voice heavy with resignation. Tension crackled between us as I issued a directive, "Come to the front living room window." Confusion tinged with fear colored Joy's response. "What are you talking about, Chris?" "Please, just come to the window," I urged, knowing that she would soon realize the gravity of the situation. As Joy's cries of panic echoed through the phone, I knew that our relationship had reached its breaking point. I watched from a distance as Joy's figure appeared alongside another person, presumably Steve Miller, her lover and the owner of the house, who also happened to be the managing partner of Patterson, Miller and Lewis, an accounting firm. However, due to the glare from the sun, all I could make out were vague shapes and movement. Positioned about 75 feet down the long driveway in a U-Haul box truck, I knew they could easily spot me as I stood by the open back door, which I'd intentionally left ajar before calling Joy. Once Joy and Steve were in view, I swiftly retreated into the truck's cab, shifted into reverse, and pressed down on the accelerator. The truck jerked backward and gained speed as I approached the large turnaround area at the front of the house. Slamming on the brakes, I watched as all of Joy's belongings, meticulously packed into 48 cardboard boxes over 2 days, spilled out onto Steve's driveway and lawn. As I leaped out of the truck and surveyed the chaos, it was evident that some of the lighter boxes containing clothes remained somewhat intact, while the heavier ones, like those holding Joy's great-grandmother's china, were shattered, scattering broken pieces across the driveway. Joy and Steve had moved to the front step of the house. Joy, wearing the bikini I'd gifted her for our 25th anniversary cruise, looked horrified, covering her mouth with her hands as she breathed heavily. Steve, usually an assertive figure, appeared less imposing than usual. Unaware of the strange car parked nearby, they were caught off guard when a process server approached them. Handing Joy a legal-sized envelope and announcing her name, she then did the same for Steve and his firm, capturing their images with her phone before departing. In the tense silence that followed, I felt the urge to say a few more words to make my state of mind clear. Though I knew Joy would likely resist divorce proceedings, I needed her to understand my resolve. Shouting across the distance between us, I declared, I deserve better than a deceitful, unfaithful wife. Joy's pain groan echoed in response. Addressing Steve, I continued, contact my attorney and make a fair offer or face the consequences. Joy, just sign the damn papers. We're done. With that, I retreated into the truck and drove away, leaving them both behind.